what I'm offering to you is this model of leadership that incorporates a high level of freedom and creativity. So there's a book called The Spider and the Starfish, or let's see, The Starfish and the Spider, The Unstoppable Power of Leaderless Organizations. Can anybody tell me what is it about a spider? Well, there's several things, but name some things that are different between a spider and a starfish.
The starfish is very flexible.
Very flexible, okay? Other things?
Which spider is dead. If a starfish is cut up, each piece becomes a new starfish.
Exactly. So the starfish is a kind of organism where the DNA and all the parts of the organism can reproduce themselves into new versions of the organism. So a spider can lose a foot or two, but you lose a head or there's damage to the central part of it, the organism is dead. And a lot of our congregations are spider organizations. And we want to think more like, how can we make them starfish organizations? And this is what church planters do. The church planters have this basic DNA in their churches that they're planting, and they train the leaders in that DNA, and then they expect those leaders to go on and plant more churches and more churches. So it's sort of an each one, plant one kind of model. Now, there's this word that I learned last fall at one of the leadership days called chaotic. Has anybody heard that word before? It's one of my favorite new words. It refers to a system of governance that blends the characteristics of both chaos and order. Let's see. It was actually coined by the CEO of the Visa Corporation. But there's this, yeah, before the big crash, right? But there's this idea of how can you, creativity comes out of chaos, but we also need order to get things done. So how can you hold your congregations in that tension between chaos and order? So what I like to talk about is the DNA of our congregations. That's sort of the term I use. And did any of you read Peter Morales' paper, Congregations and Beyond? Any of you? A few of you have read that. What we're seeing is that the millennials, the people in their 35 and younger, are really just staying away from institutional religion. They're not coming to churches so much. When they are asked what religion they are, they tend to check none. But they also have the and when people say spiritual but not religious, what they're often meaning is, I have a spiritual yearning, but today's institutions are not meeting that need. So part of what this conversation is we have Unitarian Universalists doing ministry sort of at the edges of what we would call normal church. So Naomi King has a Twitter ministry. We have the Church of the Larger Fellowship that has online services and things like that. David Owen O'Quill had a ministry called Micah's Porch in Chicago, which he actually sort of preached in a bar and then sort of had a coffee house kind of thing. There's been some articles on such ministries in the UU world. So what we're looking at is, okay, maybe Unitarian Universalism doesn't necessarily mean these lovely buildings. There's this certain sensibility, and how else might that look as time goes on? Because we have these core values that we really want to share and pass on to subsequent generations. And if we only tie those values to our buildings as they were in the 50s, we're gonna die. It's just we're not going to survive in any sort of we're small now. We're going to really dry up. So. I want to ask you, so what are some of the things that you think should be, if we were to present Peter Morales with a list of this is what we think is part of Unitarian Universalist DNA, what would you put on that list?